The fire's kindling, the fire's burning, the fire's warming up inside. Be by my side. Welcome, everybody. We're back, and this is Tune In and Find the Others. My name is Tony Guerin. It's just been a wild week. I took a week and a half off from doing a podcast, but we're here. My spirit is grounded. I hope your spirit is grounded. And if you're not grounded, let's breathe in a deep breath inwards through our nose to our stomachs and out through our mouths. Inwards again and out. In this place, you are safe, you are honored, you are supported, you are loved. Want to extend gratitude for whoever's listening. Also letting you know I have a Patreon if you want to support me and support people coming on the show and having content to share, thoughts to share on all the things that life is teaching us and teaching these individuals that are tuning in, turning on, and being the change they wish to see in the world. We have a wonderful guest today who I just met, actually, and I'm excited to pick his brain and see what things he's learned and how he's utilizing his connections to make the world a better place. And it's going to be a good one. I want to let you know that we're sponsored by 3 different organizations, businesses, people. The first is Lemieux Smithing. I have a friend that has helped me in my activist career for a long time. His name is Joseph Lemieux, and he is a blacksmith, and he makes these really cool knives and swords. And he does like restoration work with metal. So if you're into custom knives, custom swords, anything of that sort, he's got your back. That's at lemieuxsmithing.com. And then we're also sponsored by Purple East. Purple East has been a head shop in Grand Rapids since 1974. They have all the things available for your pot smoking needs. They got crystals, they got tapestries, they got all kinds of cool clothes and ways to store your weed and just make your smoking experience better. And they also have CBD. I know that's it's been really helpful for me and for many people that are dealing with different illnesses and aches and pains, and it can be really helpful. Check out Purple East. It's here on Plainfield in Grand Rapids. And then we're also sponsored by Bedroom Ceilings, which is a band in Grand Rapids, and they've been wonderful supporters throughout my time podcasting so far. They do a lot of like indie rock, folk, wonderful people, and they have a lot of good music to share. They put out an album in May, and they're working on doing more. I think Ben Steer was on Dogtown Studio. He did a live performance the other day. Check them out. They're really good people, really good band. um, and support local musicians during this time where we got a pandemic and a lot of venues aren't able to open, and artists are struggling. And the more we can support people in our local community that are doing good things and that are creating art and that are creating from their heart, it's a really good thing. And we can do our part in helping everybody succeed in this time. Well, here we are. We're about to get into a mind of another human being who's doing the thing in whatever way they can. So the person we are connecting with is Cam Forton. He's a research technician at Andel Institute. They have studies involving Parkinson's and also the immune response in regards to depression. He's a freelance guitar tech. He is a lifelong musician, majored in jazz, and is really big into music. He's working with other musicians here in Grand Rapids. From what I've understood about him with the limited amount of time that I've spent with him, he's a talented musician, and I think he has a lot to share on his studies on music history and everything that he learned in college. So yeah, we're excited to get into this guy's mind, and we welcome to the show Cam Forton.
Hey Tony, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's great. How are you?
Doing all right. It's the weather's becoming kind of more like fall, more like kind of more kind of my speed, really. I love the summer, man, but there's something about the fall. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's sweatshirt weather, right?
Yeah, yeah. It kind of allows you to wear the flannels and everything you've been storing up all summer, and you bring out all the more I don't know. It seems like fall fashion. It just really brings out more of a energy and more of kind of like just people can, I don't know, just express themselves a little bit more, I would say.
Yeah, you really can tell the people that enjoy being out in nature, like, are really willing to do, like, take the risk of being cold and just, like, put on more layers and let's get out into the woods and that kind of thing. And I'm excited to get out there more. And it's really not that cold yet.
No, not yet. Yeah. Still got a little while, and then the water's probably going to incubate it a little bit. So, wasn't really particularly hot this summer though. So, but we'll see, man. I'm really looking forward to it's just kind of nice, to feel like we can still be outside and still experience nature and experience the world, even though much of society's kind of slowed down.
Right.
Just a wild time right now.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that a lot because, like, I've been thinking about how crazy this has been, and someone told me that it's also an experience that allows us a chance to grow that other people won't get, because it's kind of a once in a lifetime experience. And that was a really, really strange thought. I didn't really, I kind of took that in kind of a weird way. I was like, yeah, but it's such a terrible thing. But I guess even just trying to find positives out of this, it's allowed a lot of people to kind of slow down their thought a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
at least for myself, I was kind of just go, and
right.
Graduate, I need to get a career, I need to get a job, I need to get moving, and then all of a sudden I just kind of slowed down my thought, and kind of allowed me to kind of re-centralize, I guess. I'd always been kind of putting a lot of pressure on myself, but yeah, it's just, man, this is a crazy time right now.
Yeah, so I guess I want to ask, like, how's that been for you? How has this pandemic been incubating, or like, yeah, what is the that period of being isolated, what did that do for your, like, your spirit or your mental state?
I really wasn't in a great place, I would say, as far as that goes, before this all kind of hit. But for some reason throughout it, I really allowed, I guess I can relate it. I used to be a wildlife intern for Sleeping Bear Dunes, and So actually, when I went to school, I started out as a jazz major, and I didn't actually finish that jazz major. I ended up finishing a music minor. Ended up doing zoology and human biology instead. And one of the first things I did was I went out to Sleeping Bear Dunes. There's an island out there called North Manitou Island, and the place is awesome, man. Like it's you're basically permacamped on the beach, and my job was tracking piping plovers, and they're an endangered shorebird. And I'm talking, it gets so dark out there, you can't see your hand from your face. And you're out there by yourself in this tent, for 5 days, and you don't see anyone else. The only time you're really talking to anybody is to check in on the radio. You got to check in the morning, and then you check in at night, just so the HQ knows you're all right. And I honestly originally was really terrified of that. I was like, that seems like a really kind of a scary place to be, alone with your own thoughts and stuck with them, and not really, as somebody like myself, I'm kind of a verbal processor, and I thought to myself that'd be kind of freaky. I like to talk things out with people and process thoughts. But someone really, I cannot remember her name, but one of the people out there who worked on the island at a time told me that it's also a great time for changing the way you think, because when you're around friends, around family, if you have a thought that pops up in your head, you think to yourself, well, I better run that thought past this person. But when you're out there on the island, you don't have anyone else to really run that thought across. You really only have yourself, and that's kind of when you realize your true intentions. Like, you realize like what your actual thoughts are, because you have to make the decision yourself. It forces you to do it. And so that was kind of crazy for me, man. And I feel like it kind of brought me back to that, because I stopped engaging. We couldn't really engage with the same people that we had been engaging with, and a lot of the things that we were doing, we had to realize, like, when we don't have a lot of people, I've heard it described as we didn't really realize how connected the entire world was until this COVID hit.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
And I'm pretty sure that was Duncan Trussell who said that on one of his podcasts. And he's like, and I'm like, you know what? He's right, because all of a sudden we kind of sense this humanity that nobody else. We're all so busy with our lives and our identities and all that, but when you strip all that away, we're all just human, and that's the basis of who we are. And when the whole world has to stop like this, then all we really have to really kind of focus on is our humanity, especially when things are being taken away from us, like shows like music. It's huge for us, and for good reason, of course. This is important stuff we're dealing with. But that was kind of what it did for me. It kind of allowed me to realize I need to really figure out where I feel, or how I feel connected with the world. And I would say that's kind of how I've really been coping with it, and how it's really kind of been affecting me. Is it started out like great. This is what am I doing? I'm stuck now with trying to make ends meet with this. And then my job. Luckily allowed me to work from home. It just felt like everything I was doing wasn't as meaningful, because a lot of what I do is wet lab work, and it felt like it's kind of just like, well, what's going on? I feel like everything just kind of stopped, and the momentum just kind of died. But it really did allow me to stop and just realize, though, well, how am I connected with life? What even is the essence of life? And it's just it seems really weird to say this, but I feel like I just completely kicked my loneliness through lockdown. It was weird. It was like I felt this like lingering kind of loneliness, and then for some reason, just kind of all of a sudden feeling more connected with life, and just feeling more like just life in general, just being this one unit as opposed to just a bunch of individual things. It just kind of allowed me to feel so much more connected. It was really strange.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's it's a beautiful way to look at it, and it's amazing that time allowed you to really get in touch with that loneliness, because I think the loneliness really is teaching us something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's it's almost that, like, grasping. It's like, why are we grasping? Like, what is it? What is the part of our brain, or like our psyche? What is trying to be fulfilled? What need is calling out to be served?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that time where we, like, really had to be alone with that and really sit with that really taught a lot of people how to cope with that loneliness. And I think for me, in a lot of ways, I feel like I went through a wave of. So I was smoking more weed, and I was just watching a lot of like Netflix movies and
Tiger King, man.
yeah, and just well, Tiger King. I did
The
not
whole world
want.
stopped. The whole world stopped, though. I
A
mean,
lot
like,
of
I
people,
was
yes,
big.
a lot of people got into the Tiger King. I definitely didn't. I didn't want to have any part of that. I saw like one episode. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good on that.
Right. Hey, but when you think about it, it was like that was like the part of that was like right before lockdown became all these crazy themes that started popping up like left and right of
Right.
2020.
Right.
But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how being forced to be alone like that can really get you in touch with your process of just relating with the world, relating with yourself, and developing routines. And I think towards the second half of it, of the stay-at-home order, I started to get a rhythm down, because I would be staying up until like 9 in the morning and then waking up at 5 p.m. Because there was no like concept of time, there is just like like what are we here to do but like eat food and be with our roommates if we have roommates, and just like try to write or read or like do something to try to occupy our time. And yeah, I'm grateful for you that you found a way through the loneliness, and were
Yeah.
able to come up with a good rhythm.
Yeah, it's weird because like I don't mean to make it sound like it was debilitating. It was more just this. I feel like a lot of people I feel like there's different types of loneliness, and I feel like mine was really coming from a place of fulfillment.
Mm.
I was surrounded by people. I was playing shows, great friends, great people in my life, but it was really just a fulfillment issue. Like I didn't really feel like I was really in tune with myself. So it's almost like it was almost like my soul, or like my inner being was more lonely, I guess. Not necessarily my like topical being, like who I am. And I don't know how to describe that any better. It's like sometimes I feel like we have these fulfillments in the back of our mind, and it's kind of funny, dude. I feel like I'm relating this. I feel like I'm relating this to a lot of pop culture, or I'm going to be, because that was kind of a lot what happened. I didn't really watch any TV shows or anything until COVID. Or I didn't really listen to podcasts. I didn't really pick that up so heavily until COVID. And now I just listen to tons of them. And I really find it funny, that Avatar got back on Netflix and everybody was watching it.
Yeah.
And here I was like, man, I didn't watch that as a kid, so let me take a look at that.
Right.
And it was so nuts to me how here's a kids show, like it was designed, for young adults, and yet it's teaching issues that most kids shows aren't really dealing with. And here I am as a full-grown adult thinking to myself, well, the whole idea of Zuko trying to basically make his fulfillment and make his destiny based off of what someone else told him he should be doing, as opposed to what he actually felt. And seeing, like, okay, well, they definitely portrayed that correctly. And then I started to realize, well, what am I doing? Is my fulfillment, am I trying to find something based off of what society told me growing up, or am I finding my fulfillment based off of what I actually want to do, or what I actually feel called to do. And so I don't know, man. It's just kind of funny how like that all that stuff is buried within pop culture sometimes, and it's so easy to look over it and just miss it and just not feel like you relate to it. But again, there's something about the world slowing down and just people having being left with more more thoughts and stuff like that. And it's a very hard time for some people. We can talk about this and say like, well, there's so many good things that came out of it, but there's also so many tough things and so many people struggling, that it's more important than ever to really be checking in with people. It really is a trying time, and though we may see some positives out of it, there's still many negatives, unfortunately. And but it's just so interesting that a lot of these pop culture and like shows and stuff seem to be kind of becoming to the forefront in a time when they might not, otherwise may not have.
Yeah, I think you can find medicine in so many different things if you know where to look. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you allow yourself to be open, I this may sound like airy fairy or ultra spiritual, but I definitely feel that there's resources available to us at all times, like in the form of like books that we haven't read that just like stick in our like that are just like off
Yeah.
to the side in our room or like
Dude, you're right.
I feel like the universe speaks to us in very interesting ways where if we're open and ready to receive the message, it'll show up. And like those synchronicities have been happening more and more in my life recently. But you do bring up a really good point of like it's this time has created almost like a magnifying glass to the disparities that truly exist in the systems that are set up in our culture.
Oh, 100%.
And people are struggling in ways that and I think ultimate like there's good and bad to everything, and I think part of that is really good because we're starting to see as a collective like these issues aren't going away. Like racial disparities, like that issue isn't going away. It's being highlighted so it can actually be dealt with, and some people don't like that it's being highlighted.
Right.
But I think it needs to be highlighted so we can actually do the real justice and bring about systems as a society that can care for all people and serve all needs.
Yeah. I mean, the first step to change, is getting the collective to understand that there is a problem.
Yeah.
And so many people, just kind of go by, basically not acknowledging that, and just the roots of how certain things have been set up, and the way that we need to change those things. And it's there's a lot of people that are afraid of that, I think, and especially in this country. And I 100% agree, man. It's we've really kind of been given a really unique opportunity here to really highlight issues that have just been kind of covered by our busy lives, things that people don't seem to have the time to focus on sometimes, which is sad as it is to say that. So.
Yeah, we're at a very interesting time, and I'm happy to be speaking with somebody that is aware of those things. And
Yeah.
And I kind of want to ask the question, like, what's your life like now? Like, what are you doing in your day-to-day life? What does it look like for Cam Forton?
A lot of podcasts, man. I just feel like I've just become so much more aware of what's the ideas that are out there. I really do want to talk about music, definitely, because there's some really interesting things I've learned about that too recently. But just as far as like stuff I'm noticing, I was just noticing the other day that everybody that I seem to look up to, especially people that are talented, like musicians. There's that podcast I actually sent you, like Buckethead, Brian Carroll doing an actual interview as Brian Carroll, and he's talking about these themes, and a lot of these themes of feeling, just connected to life and this living, breathing thing, as life. And here's this, just stellar musician speaking about all this stuff that I feel like I'm just, finally getting in tune with. But then I would just find it everywhere, even David Blaine, he just recently did that stunt where he was flying up in the sky with all those balloons and all that. And dude, it was crazy. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't seen that.
But he went up to like 27,000 feet or something like that, and the dude just is able to his breathing control, his breath work.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, next thing I know, the next podcast I'm listening to is with Duncan is about they're talking about breathing, and this guy that has this entire website devoted to breathing and just all the stuff you can do with something just as simple as breathing.
Yeah, did he have Wim Hof on? Is that what it was?
No, it wasn't him. It was they talked about him, but it wasn't. No, it wasn't Wim Hof. It was I can't remember the guy's name. It's what was it? It was is gosh, what was his last name? I know the website is Shift Adapt, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Shiftadapt.com. It's his website, and he's got like a breathing calculator, and you can. There's Brian McKenzie, yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And but there's so many like different aspects to just simple aspects of discovering that all these people I look up to have seemingly discovered. Even just as something as simple as the concept of God, for instance. Just as somebody that grew up non-denominational Christian, and it seems like a lot of people try to personify God, but God, it's just so much different than what I would have thought. Just the realizations, and to see all these people that I look up to, and all these people of great talents that seem to have this kind of figured out and feel so at calm with themselves. Like the David Lane thing. The dude is just so calm and down to earth, and he said something about when people pass away, it's there's still people, even though they're gone, it's still through our living that they're basically living through us, especially relatives. And then I started thinking about that more. My grandpa passed a few years ago, and my dad, I still notice, it's all of a sudden I'm noticing so much of my grandpa and my dad, and I'm like, well, how does that relate to me? There's parts of my grandpa and me then probably. It's like we're direct bloodline. It's like my grandpa's still here. So it's just that kind of stuff, and seeing that has been crazy. It's affected my life insanely. I feel so much more upbeat. I have so much more energy. I feel so much more comfortable where I'm going. I feel more streamlined. It's insane, man. I could never have imagined this. If you talked to me 2 years ago, I would have still been, like, I don't really ever see myself ever figuring this out and, feeling more in tune. But it's just been nice. I feel like I really feel thankful and pretty blessed that I've been able to have these revelations recently. So it's kind of affected everything now too, because with music, I feel like things just flow so much better. I started a new group that we're working right now. We're going to be more of like a kind of like a funk or like R&B kind of thing. We're very much fans of like Snarky Puppy and Wolfpack and all that.
Nice.
So we're trying to get that going. And the musicians I'm working with are just phenomenal. They're just they make me feel like I need to really, really work hard to keep up.
That's a good thing. That's a super good thing.
Yeah, the first band I ever played in, we played a lot of covers and stuff, back in high school, was probably one of the best guitarists I've ever met. His name is Nate Rogers. You can actually check him out. I think it's Mr. Rogers Guitar. I think that's what he goes. I think he just goes by. Yeah, isn't that great? I think he just goes by Nathan Rogers now, though, on YouTube. But the dude is insane, and note choice, everything. He won like a guitar competition up in Traverse City recently. But like, he's a good friend of mine, and that was the last time that I really was like noticeably like, wow, I really need to like pick this up. And then the writing abilities of the people I played with recently, even in the band, you and them, Ricky, I'd come up with some chords, and then he just like, well, hey, what do you think of this? And I hear it, and I'm like, dude, his writing ability and the ability to hear that and just chord building is just so good. It's so cool to see things that other people have that cause you to be a better person and better musician and have better talent. And you got to think that extends to other things. It's got to extend to other things, like even just attitudes. I've got a friend, Noah, and I've always thought to myself, I've never seen him in a bad mood. Like if he walked outside, I've said this before, but like if he walked outside and his car was crushed by a tree, I don't think he would get all down about it and let it ruin his day. Instead, he would go back inside and he'd want to tell everybody about it. Like, hey man, come check this out. Look at this. like, can you believe this? Like, oh, he's like, he start cussing and be all like, like, can you believe this, man? Wow, what in the world? Like,
I want that guy in my team.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And like, I started noticing that. I'm like, but that's got to affect people, because now here I am thinking to myself that I want to be that way too. It's like, there's so many material things that we can let just ruin our day, but at the end of the day, I'm still alive. I'm still here. My family's healthy. My friends are healthy. There's things to be thankful for. Material things aren't forever. We're not really taking those with us when we leave. I could build up. I could be the richest man on earth and build up my riches, but what good does that do if I haven't really figured out or connected my soul to what's going on, or figured out how I fit in this life. And I feel like that's so much more important. And I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love that, you know, there's so many cool material things and great things that people use to connect to the, you know, to the overall, you know, matrix and just all that sort of thing. But a lot of the time I just, you know, I think about that a lot. I'm like, well, how is it that if I can be affected so profoundly by a guitarist or by a musician in a band, well, you got to imagine there's got to be things that are smaller interactions that we have with people that we also cause them to notice, and then they will also want to better themselves because of it.
Yeah.
So it's probably partly a human ego thing, I would think, that would cause people to feel that way, which is a good thing. The ego can be a good thing, but it's such a hard thing to control.
Yeah. It takes awareness, you know, and that awareness can be built through meditation practices and breath work and you know, just allowing yourself to be more present to where you can watch your mind do the thing where it's like, oh, I see where my mind is trying to, you know, like pleasure itself in this way instead of like, you know, it's interesting to watch how the mind does its thing. But it's super cool to hear about your journey and how like recent this all has been.
Dude, super recent, man. I mean, like I imagine it's just going to keep getting better. I mean, this is the first year I've really felt like this, you know. I'm sitting here 27 years old and for years and years thinking to myself that, you know, I couldn't get it together, and then finally starting to feel that connectivity to everything is really just changed a lot.
Have you read the Celestine Prophecy?
No, actually I'm not familiar.
You should definitely read that. That's one of the books that was very formative in my process of like understanding my connection with like, I don't know, like plants and energy and I don't know. It's this whole book is basically this guy goes down to Peru and he's learning about the basic principles of how to save the world, pretty much. And one of the things he learns is how to connect with plants and the energy that passes through like plants and us, and like talking to plants and the energetics of like how our consciousness, like what our consciousness is like in relationship with like food, in relationship with like the plants that are growing, I don't know. It's super fascinating, and it's a fiction book, but I've heard from many other people that they have read this book, and while reading this book, the things that were happening in the book were happening in their own life. I've heard this from several other people, and then it started happening to me. I lost it when it started happening that way, because I'd put down the book, wouldn't read it for like maybe a month and a half, and whenever I'd pick it back up, it's like, wow, it's literally talking about exactly what I'm doing right now.
That is so cool, man.
Yeah, but
I've written it down. I'm definitely adding that.
Yeah, and anybody listening too. I mean, it's a really, really, really good book. Also a good book I would recommend, if you've read it or not, Ishmael. Have you ever heard of that?
I feel like I have. You might have to remind me on that one. I feel like I'm so new to a lot of this. You know, I'm really just now discovering a lot of what's out there. And I find it funny, the avenue, you know, that I kind of came through, but I'm so glad I did. You know, it like almost doesn't even matter the avenue that you come through when you're figuring out a lot of this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how it, like, you know, universe, so to speak, finds ways to speak to us and guide us to where we need to be, and it definitely it feels like from connecting with you that you've had like these formative situations that have guided you. I mean, you're a super humble guy, and like it's very obvious from anybody that's listening can hear that. And I think
Appreciate that.
yeah. Well, I think a lot of those like formative pieces that guided you to where you are now, it's like now the puzzle pieces are like coming together. Like
Yeah.
you may not have understood that like this puzzle piece was for this and this puzzle piece is for this, but it just like now it's starting to come together, and it's you're starting to see the picture, and you're like, oh, okay, I can plug it in this way, and I understand that. And like those moments are so cool, and like really like become a feedback loop for
Yeah.
understanding more and wanting to get deeper into like connection with yourself and others. And I don't know, I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's like I said, just noticing it in so many people, and it just makes you really want to, just push it forward, pay it forward. Um,
Yes.
and I think, music obviously played a pretty big role in it for me. I think it was something that was always there, and the way I was experiencing it, I just never was able to actually see it. The way that I was experiencing it. Um, but now looking back, and understanding just what I do now, it just makes everything else have so much more meaning. I think that's the biggest part.
What kind of music has been formative for you?
Um, well, honestly, man, just in general, just the idea of it, because this is something I really like to talk about. I feel like, I mean, I've been playing instruments for a long time. My family was they were all singers. So my mom would sing, my dad, my brother. My brother picked up guitar at a time, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." But I was playing brass instruments at the time, and I think just just the overall experience of playing music, just expressing yourself through it. It's like uh, it's really a matter of the fact that music is something that I think everybody can experience. I mean, can you imagine life without it? Like the idea of like every movie or even just, have you ever read a book and just imagined like music behind it, or video games, TV, any sort of media really, and then just in general, out in public, people are whistling, humming songs. It's just literally everywhere, and you can't escape it. And I just can't imagine a world without it. And it's one of those things again that just kind of makes you realize how connected everything is. I mean, it's been said so many times that music is kind of a universal language. And the idea that I could play a major scale for you, and you'd be like, "That sounds nice," and then I play a minor scale for you, and you're like, "Oh, that sounds kind of sad," or a minor tonality, any of the modes that are minor, or any of the modes that are major, I could play them, and they just sound so different. But I could take that same thing, and I could take it over across halfway across the world somewhere else. I wouldn't understand a word that maybe they were saying, and they wouldn't maybe understand a word I was saying. But we could still be playing music together. I could pull out a guitar, and as long as somebody else around the world had a guitar as well, or any instrument, we could sit down and play music and understand it. It's like such an innate, perfect language. It's something that like nobody really has to figure out. It's everybody has that same dialect, and the cool thing about it is when you take those different dialects and you put them together, that's what creates new music. So it's just a gift that keeps on giving. It's like if you take even just the band I was playing in that I play with in Grand Rapids, you and them, we're all from very different backgrounds, but we put it all together, and it creates kind of a different sound, kind of like a different just feel. And we recorded these demos of sorts. It was like a 3-track that we kind of just recorded in the basement, just to get some music out there. And the response has been really, really good. And even moving forward to the stuff I've been playing with these guys I'm jamming with now, it's just so cool to see these differences, of like where these different backgrounds come together to create a new sound. And that's kind of what puts music forward. I just think that's kind of the thing. Is it just music is just another reminder of how connected everything is. Because I don't care where you're from, who you are, any of that stuff. If we're just sitting down to play music, then that's what we're experiencing. We're having a conversation, and that conversation, you can learn a lot about somebody. You can learn a lot about somebody just from playing music with them. And I think that's really really cool. It just really really allows people to connect as humans, you know.
Yeah. When you were saying I don't care who you are, I was thinking of the Backstreet Boys song. I think that's what. Maybe it's In Sync. I'm not sure. I don't care who you are, where you're
Dude,
from,
I
as
remember
long
elementary
as you
school.
love me.
Yeah, dude, I remember that stuff in elementary school. I remember it was such a. Do you remember the first Gorillaz album? And it was such a big deal.
Oh
Like, oh no,
yeah,
oh man, hey, like, Kyle's got the new Gorillaz album. What? His parents let him get it? You know what I mean? And it was like a big deal. Do you remember that? Or the
yeah.
Offspring? I remember the Offspring.
Oh
Like, it
yeah.
was, dude, like music was so crazy as a kid, and I think that I actually just watched today. Ray and I watched actually a documentary called Live Inside, actually, and I really wanted to talk about this. And I'm really glad I got to watch it. Uh, it was really really cool. It's a documentary. I highly recommend it. You can actually find it on YouTube. But it's about music and how it basically where it's stored in the brain, and it follows this
Mm.
guy. It follows this guy named Dan who goes to different nursing homes, and these people that have dementia or Alzheimer's, who are just kind of they're being. He describes it like they're being medically treated, but they're not. But the soul, the human element, isn't being treated. So these people are just kind of in these areas. These people with beautiful backgrounds and beautiful minds, but they're really only being treated medically. So he brings music to them. He brings music from their backgrounds to them, and there's really crazy clips on YouTube of this. And these people that are
I think I've
unresponsive.
seen this.
Have you seen that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden here they are talking about their childhood and everything, and he mentions like philosopher Immanuel Kant. I don't know a ton about him, but apparently he describes it as music as being the quickening art. It speeds up the mind.
Mm.
Like why else is there baby Mozart? Or any of the other stuff, where they suggest you play classical music for your children and they learn faster. He even says in this documentary at one point, it's interesting when you watch toddlers or any kids with music and they are moving to the beat. So like, it's just stuff like that too, like when you're at a young age, just learning innately, music is just this thing that like you just have, and I think that's really cool. I think that's honestly like one of the coolest things. But yeah, just that idea of like kids, just being able to just pick up a beat and just seeing that at such a young age. It's not even something that's taught. I think it's just really incredible.
Yeah. Well, you were talking before about how it's not something you have to think about. It's something you feel. It's something that like when you hear music, it's like your body just naturally starts like especially if it's really good music, your body just like goes with it and just like all right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really true for like especially true for kids because they're just in their playful state, they're just
Yeah.
enjoying life, and they get that music and they're like they just like connect to it and they're like yeah, and like I really think it's important, like the type of music that you play for your kids, and like what that like I don't know what that what kind of tones you're like I don't know. I feel like kids can pick up so much, like they can learn so much through like a beat being a certain way and then stopping and then picking up in a very like it's like math. It's like a mathematical way, and they can learn
100%, yeah.
they can learn the like I wish I could describe this. Like they can learn like through the absence of sound and then it picking back up, like
Mm.
like, and then that reflects back into their actions too. Um,
Yeah, there's actually a really like I'm going to refer to this documentary, and I mean, honestly, man, I feel like just talking about the subject in general, this music and all the stuff I've learned, and even through some of my classes and just stuff that I've learned from professors, I could get lost in this stuff, and I feel like I already have. I feel like I've already started a topic and gotten lost in it, man. But like they said in this documentary that apparently through research they've discovered that babies when they're born, they take on their cries actually take on characteristics of their mother's vocalizations.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, same patterns, and they're infants, they're babies. Like, so their brains are already processing like just sound and processing, stuff like that. They're already storing information about that. Isn't that crazy? And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is that like innately they're just picking up these sounds.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of music out there that's not that's kind of like part of our conditioned culture, that's just like regurgitating the conditioned culture in which we live in. And I think that's why it's so important for us musicians to be creating music from the heart and really you know sharing our experiences of like things that we've overcome, and ways that we've overcome them.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really helping, and a lot of being a musician is not being attached to seeing the outcome of what you've created. Like any creator, like not being attached to what you created and what the impact will be, and that's one of the hardest things. But it's something that like it affects everything, and
Yeah.
we're never gonna see that end result. But the more that we do something creative with our heart, it's gonna ripple out into the universe and even come back to us.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
It's funny how impressionable the mind is, kind of like what you're saying. I'm sure you can think of many times when you were like a kid, right? Like we're talking like elementary school a minute ago, where a teacher said something to you and you still think about it, or like just somebody on noon duty, out supervising everybody out in the playground. I still remember things that even just noon duty workers would say, and like it's crazy that in their minds they're just saying something to a kid, and just talking, but then they don't realize how impressionable the minds of kids are. Well, it's funny how music, the way that music can be impressionable on us, it doesn't really seem to change. It almost seems like it's something that even later on down the road, music is still that impressionable on us. And I think that's pretty phenomenal, because it means that you're constantly changing. Like I've changed my music taste so many times, and it's always changing. I feel like I can hear a new sound, and all of a sudden it feels like I'm just learning something for the first time. Like it's like when a dog hears a noise for the first time as a puppy, and they like perk their ears up.
Right.
It's kind of like the same thing, but music can do that to you, and I feel like it doesn't matter how old you are. You're always able to experience something auditory for the first time, or audible for the very first time, and I think that's also pretty fascinating. But when you're talking about just these themes and these feelings and whatever that music can evoke, isn't it pretty awesome how music can also just it can be important when it comes to just to progressive thought, to the idea of just music that carries a message that's important, especially in today's climate and stuff like that. There's music that can carry messages that are just important for everybody to hear, and I think that's also important, because that's kind of where a lot of popular music gets its roots. I mean, you look at like the Caribbean islands, and the way that free speech was restricted before the revolutions. I believe Haiti was the first. They would actually use, and this is from Dr. Largy. Actually, he had a really awesome book. It's called Caribbean Currents. It's actually a textbook, but it doesn't really feel like a textbook because the way this describes Caribbean music, and what you learn from it is that they didn't have free speech, so they used music for free speech. And a lot of these people on these islands actually found this music to be better source material for, well, it's not source material, I don't know what the right word is, but better news source than the actual news, because it wasn't censored.
That's amazing.
But it was like a workaround for them to have free speech without being, getting in trouble with it from the authorities.
Yeah.
And so it was funny, and then it got to the point where they started cracking down on that, right? So then all of a sudden you have these guys using, what's described as double entendre, where they're still portraying these ideas through music that's getting around to the world. You know what I mean? but it's not being picked up as free speech against oppression. And it's just so interesting that stuff like that, like music has just been used in so many different ways, and the fact that it's been around forever, like they found like super old instruments, from long time ago. And the biggest thing that ever really stuck out to me was the I think it's pronounced psychulos. It's an epitaph. But the first thing I learned in in the history of Western music back at MSU was about this epitaph. And the message on the epitaph, the researchers have finally, cracked what it sounded like and translated it to sheet music. But it's from Greece, and it was about they believe it was a man to his wife, and his wife has passed. And I actually wrote down the words because it's really short, but it's just, as long as you live, shine, let nothing grieve you beyond measure. For life is short, and time will claim its toll. So even that long ago, people were using music to convey this emotion and these ideas. And when you think about how much weight that can hold, music is something like when people learn things, they use music to try to learn them. Why do we sing a song to the ABCs? Because it makes it easier to remember, right? You can associate music with thoughts. And so the fact that you can write out what you want to say about something, but if you write it out musically, there's something about that seems to really hit a different part of the brain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like emotion with movement. It's like energy and motion, and you got like I've noticed how like when I move, and I've noticed other people saying this too, when I move while I'm speaking, and also when I'm speaking, I'm feeling into what I'm feeling and changing the tone of it based on like how it's coming through. People are more engaged. People, like people, it's almost trance-like, because you're becoming in the moment with, as the emotions are coming through, as the thoughts are coming through, and attempting to be authentic with it and allow for that authenticity to come through, and it's related. Like I feel like the tones that you use in the way that you speak can totally shift a narrative, or like shift the way a conversation is going. Like,
yeah, totally.
Like, even if you're in a, especially if you're in a tough conversation with somebody where you have to communicate something that they're not going to like, the tone in which you're using to bring about the thing is really important. And that also, like what you were talking about with like minor and major, so like utilizing the minor in a way that needs to be said. Maybe something needs to be said with tough love, and it absolutely needs that kind of energy. But you also want to use the major to complement it in a specific way that can allow the person to know that, hey, like, I care about you, and this is something that I want to communicate because I love you. And I think that's like a way to kind of bridge how like music is not just speaking to like major and minor, but it's also speaking to like, masculine and feminine energy. It's speaking to like the hardening and softening and the ways that we can dance things together to create more harmonious solutions. And it's just fascinating to me how like music can really come back to every single aspect of life.
It really can, yeah. Like, again, we use different themes for different things in our lives. We even just ceremonies. There's just, music's just been such a huge part of everything, and the way that the emotions that it can carry, and the way it can add meaning to things. So I 100% agree, man. I think it's a really, really cool point.
So what so we're at this point in the conversation now where we've covered a whole range of topics, but we've really dived into music, and I know that's very special and near and dear to your heart and mine as well, because I love to make music, and that's a big part of my passion and what I do.
Yeah, man, you guys sounded awesome, by the way. Like, seriously, like I remember I said that, but dude, you guys had that to a T. Just even as a trio, it was awesome.
Thank you.
The other night, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so for those that don't know, I mentioned this at the show that he listened to my band Why Not play, but I just got back 4 of the 5 songs on our EP that we're gonna put out. It's gonna be an acoustic styled EP of Why Not, and they sound super, super, super good. I'm super stoked about it. And I don't have a release date yet, but I will. I'll be posting on like my Facebook, and as soon as it drops, I'll put the music in the intro of like one of the podcasts, or provide like a link in the description or something like that. Also, any music that you've put out, Cam, I'd really like to include in the description of this podcast.
Yeah, totally, man. The stuff that I did with you and them, it's kind of unfortunate, you know, that kind of music, because it is kind of like a post rock kind of.
The band's called You and Them, right?
Yeah, and it is more like
it kind of sounded for a second like with You and Them. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was great. Like we really were seeing some really huge successes, and then with lockdown, we kind of just we're taking a little bit of a break right now. But that would be the one I would probably go ahead and I'll probably send you that, because I actually just made an Instagram because I plan on doing my own solo work now. I've kind of seen music as this thing that I kept to myself a lot of the time. You know, when I was playing brass instruments, you know, I traveled Europe playing brass instruments. You know, I've been all over.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was in high school, there was this thing called Michigan Music Ambassadors, which was kind of fun thing that I saved up to do, and we just played brass music, you know, around Europe. And then with the trombone, you know, I was pretty proficient for a little while. I did, you know, MSBOA competitions, did pretty well in those, and but it wasn't really until I started, you know, playing guitar that it kind of started to transition a little bit of becoming more of a social thing. So I kind of had this problem of keeping music as a thing that I play for myself, and I play other people's music, and sometimes like when I post, you know, clips or something of me playing, it's usually other people's music. I play more covers, but then my own things I write, I keep to myself most of the time. And I don't really know why that is. I feel like
it's intimate. I feel like I don't want to speak to it like I know what it is, but like I can say from experience, like it's super intimate and it can be scary to put that out there.
Yeah, I feel like I need an alter ego, man, because Buckethead literally said that the whole reason why he ended up using Buckethead is because he's shy, and he can go on stage and do whatever he wants and not feel that embarrassment towards Brian Carroll. It's just the embarrassment is felt towards Buckethead. So in a way, he's being more himself and showing more of himself through this character than he is through if he was actually on stage as himself. And like I find that kind of funny. I you know, of course I don't want to do that, but I did create an Instagram. I do plan on making some solo music. I've been, you know, trying to toying with what kind of music I would make, and I think I'm going to make instrumental music.
Hell yeah. So like guitar and with like other instruments as well.
Yeah, I've got a lot of really awesome musicians that I work with, and good people that are great at recording, and I'll probably just start recording some demos, throw those out there, and see what I can do on that. But you know, until I get this other project up and running, these guys are incredible for this. It's an untitled project right now, but we played. But until I get that up and going, I really do think I should start doing some work on my own. So I plan on putting some of that out soon, and I'll let you know when I do that.
Yeah.
But I'll probably refer to it in my Instagram. I don't really have anything on there yet because I just made it. But if I plan on, you know, hopefully getting a workshop in my basement again for guitar work. So probably post some stuff about that too.
Yeah, so people that listen to the music that you do have with You and Them, can follow this new Instagram and try to get the likes up or the followers up, and yeah, when you put up oh no, you'll be good. Yeah,
I probably won't be posting too much you and them on that, because you and them actually we have our own Instagram for that.
Right. No, I was just saying, like, the people that like want to hear what you sound like before following, like, or totally. Like what kind of music you're into or like to do, and then that can build up there.
It's a really unique genre that we were doing in that band, but the guys, they're very wholesome people. I mean, I can't really say anything bad about any of them. They've all been, they're those kinds of people I was talking about that are like, it's hard to imagine them in a bad mood, and the music kind of speaks to that because of how well things clicked. But it just really sucks, man, because our best music and the stuff, like, the stuff we recorded was right when we came together and kind of threw some stuff together.
Yeah.
But then the stuff that we've written since is just incredible. It's like, some of the stuff we've written since, we've played a bit of it at our shows, but some of it we haven't, and we were about to get ready to record it, and then of course lockdown hit and all that. So we'll definitely be you'll definitely be seeing more from that band, but for the time being, it's going to be a little quiet until we get there. So.
Well, I wish you the most success on all of your music endeavors, and just like your life journey in general. This has been a crazy year for all of us, but it seems like it's been very transformative for you. So I'm super stoked to see more of your journey and connect further as friends.
Totally, man. I mean, it was great just to just to connect like the way we did, and yeah, man. I'm looking out for more stuff from you guys too. I'm so glad you gave me that CD. It's honestly, even the artwork on it is pretty cool, because I hadn't really ever seen like the logo for Why Not. I hadn't really ever seen it. I just kind of seen it spelled out on like Facebook events and stuff like that. But the idea of the tree, it's pretty cool. It's it's kind of a cool idea for incorporating that.
Yeah, it's interesting how that all came together. We can talk about it another time. It's just
for sure.
My friend Gordy, who's on the east side, designed the logo, and that CD cover, I just messed around with like a few apps on my phone to make it look all those colors and like the design throughout it. It's amazing what you can do now in 2020, where you could just, like, as long as you have a phone, like, you can get like a editing app, and all of a sudden you have a logo, and you can post
now you can
videos to YouTube and all kinds of crazy stuff. Connect to thousands of people.
And now Snapchat can make you anime now.
Wait, what?
Have you seen that filter on Snapchat now, the anime one? It's like it draws you as like a character.
Oh yeah.
I've been seeing that all over Twitter, and I'm like, what? Like, how in the world does it do that? But
wow.
It's kind of one of those things,
All right, you learn new things every day, right? Everybody listening, give a round of applause. Clap your hands, snap your fingers, whatever. Let's all breathe in deeply from our nose into our stomachs, and breathe out, and breathing in gratitude for our guest, and sending out all the love and energy and light to this human being who's doing good things in the world. May he be blessed. It's been a wonderful podcast.
Appreciate everything, man. Tony, it's been awesome talking with you, and I know it's late, so I appreciate you doing this, and I also really appreciate you letting me come on to talk a little bit. I think all these topics are stuff I've learned from other sources and all that, and I'd love to remember all of them, but there's just so much information out there that we can learn, and I just love to forward that. So it's just the idea of forward thinking.
We're in it to win it. We're being the change. We've just connected with a new human that is tuning in, and we found that person, and we're about to find another next week. Much love to everybody. Thanks, Cam. Let's do it. Let's be the change.
Thanks, Tony.
And here is the music. Let's take our papers and pens, igniting you and me and everyone and everything. Let's take our papers and pens, igniting you and me and everyone and everything. Ain't nothing but possibilities. At a door, at a door, at a door, at a door. Ain't nothing but possibilities. At a door,